There's an angel under my bed.
The father looked blearily at the time, then back at his boy. The child gripped a plush satyr by one long, curling horn. The stuffed goat man leered at the father with wide, unblinking eyes. The father raised himself up on one elbow. "What's under your bed?"
An angel.
The father gently swung his legs off the bed, so as to not wake the wife that no longer lay beside him. His body had never fully lost the reflex, even though the spot where his wife once slept peacefully next to him had remained vacant for over a year. The father was never any good at putting the boy's mind at ease when it came to bumps in the night, but he had had to take up the title of Monster Banisher ever since the awful accident that ripped their tight-knit family asunder. The problem was that the father both loved and feared his son's imagination. He loved the creativity that would come pouring out the boy when given a simple box of crayons and some paper. But the father also hated how easy it was for his adult self to revert back to childhood fright. The father could feel himself regress whenever his son would complain about something twitchy standing outside of his window, fidgeting with the lock, trying to get in, or the constant whispers the boy would complain about whenever he tried to do his homework. The boy had said the whispers were coming from the vent, and that he didn't know what the whispers were saying. The boy told his father that they were speaking a language he couldn't understand, and that he'd felt sick and headachy whenever they spoke. But when the father went to investigate with a hesitancy he was loathsome to feel, the room was still and silent. No whispers, just the hum of the air coming through the vent. As the father regained more of his senses, he thought it strange that his boy should be so scared of angels. They were from heaven, weren't they? Where good people went, supposedly. What was so scary about angels? The agnostic in him rejected the very speculation of it, but his child was scared, and the father's duty to quell those fears took priority, and without question. "Nothing to be afraid of, buddy. Angels are good, remember? They help people and do nice things." This last part was more or less forced out of the father. The father had never been religious, nor had he been adamant on the absence of God. To the father, the question of whether or not God exists was just too big of a question to ask. It wasn't the father's preference to give an impromptu explanation of the holy doings and wholesome nature of the angels, and why they shouldn't be under the boy's bed. But he wanted his child to go back to sleep without worrying about anything, angel or boogeyman lurking beneath the bed. The boy shook his head.
"No, it's real. I saw it."
The father paused before attempting another reassurance. He knew his boy, and knew for a fact that the boy was a god-awful liar. There was a distinct lack of that tell in the boy's near whisper, as if not wanting to speak too loudly. His eyes didn't meet the father's like they normally did in a plea to convince him of a lie. Instead, the boy kept his gaze to the floor, the plush satyr swaying like a soft pendulum in his little fist. "Okay," the father said, after scrutinizing his child's demeanor. "I'll check it out. You want to come with, or do you want to hang back?"
"Hang back,"
the boy said. "All right, wait here. I'll go look."
"It talks like Mommy, but it's not Mommy, it just sounds like her."
The father stopped dead in his tracks. His heart began to pick up pace. Though the situation was ludicrous and fantastical, the boy spoke so matter-of-factly that the father couldn't help but feel a sprinkle of panic. Painful memories washed ashore, but the father shook them from his head. The boy had a fright. Maybe even a nightmare. Possibly the boy had had a vivid and horrific episode of sleep paralysis. The father knew that dark experience all too well. There was no angel under his child's bed, and once it had been proven, they'd both get some sleep and feel much better in the morning. These self-reassurances felt oddly false, and the father approached the boy's room. A light sheen of sweat placed itself between the doorknob and the father's palm. It's nothing. The boy's just spooked and misses his mother. That is all. That is all. And again, these reassurances given to himself under breath did little to ease the father's now swelling fear. He entered. For a moment, the father felt the unwelcome terror lift. But before it had dissipated completely, the terror plopped back down heavily atop his body like the dark figure that once sat upon his chest and taunted him during the worst of his sleep paralysis episodes when he was a child himself. Something had moved. When the father had turned on the light in the boy's bedroom, all seemed as it should be. But then he'd caught sight of what looked like a leg protruding out from beneath the bed frame. The gnarled ligament was decrepit, yellow, half rotted away and bestowed with too many joints. It retracted quickly back beneath the boy's bed when the light was flicked on. Either this was a shared hallucination, and the father's mind gripped for this last straw with terror-slick fingers, or the boy had been right, at least to some degree. There was undoubtedly something under the boy's bed. The father once believed that the appearance of an intruder activated a paternal instinct, and that the father would gain heightened senses and an unshakable courage he'd never experienced before, like an action movie star. But the reality was that the thing beneath the boy's bed, the angel as his boy had claimed, was no ordinary home intruder. That leg, it was too quick, too insectile in motion. The father did not wish to see the rest of what stuffed itself beneath his child's bed. How could his son have thought this was an angel? As if this thought had been plucked and examined from the father's mind, the thing beneath the bed spoke in a voice that drove railroad spikes into his brain. Bring back the boy. One came from the right upper corner near the ceiling, one from beneath the windowsill, and one word was whispered right next to his ear. He'd felt the cold breath of the last whisper brush his earlobe. The father turned to flee the bedroom, scoop up his son, and head for the front door as fast as he could carry them. But the bedroom door slammed shut before the father had the chance to reach it. From behind the father, a familiar voice rose from beneath the bed.
Please, he's my child too.
No, the father said. No, 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 no!
Please.
His dead wife said again. The door wouldn't budge. The father twisted the knob feebly, and to no avail.
I want to take him to heaven and meet the other angels.
His wife's voice now circled him like a shark.
I want to make our boy an angel, give him wings. Why wouldn't you want me to do that? No more pain, no more fear. Heaven is wonderful.
This last word, wonderful, sounded anything but. The father began pounding on the door, screaming for his boy to go. Run like hell, find help, call the police. There was a brief sound of shuffling. Small bare feet slapped on the linoleum floor. He hoped his boy was doing what the father had told him to do, because in the next instant, there was a skittering sound from beneath the bed.
My boy,
The angel shouted in a voice that no longer resembled his dead wife's. The anger behind those words drove the railroad spikes deeper into the father's mind, and he cried out in pain. Something loomed tall behind the father. Its shadow had lengthened, and the sound of fluttering wings as they unfurled and flapped had created gusts so strong that the toys and trinkets displayed along the shelves flew all about the bedroom. There was a flicker in the father's heart, and he recognized it as a form of courage. Not the unbreakable courage of an action hero put to task, but the courage of a desperate father, whose love for his last link to this earth was greater than the total sum of his collective terror. The father swallowed. Then he turned to meet his end in the form of 1,000 hate-filled eyes piercing his own. The last sounds that the father heard beneath the unholy cacophony was that of the front door slamming shut.